Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it is yet another video in my 2023 NFL offseason prediction series. It's the Carolina Panthers. Thanks for coming back. Make sure to hit the like and the subscribe so you don't miss any of the future videos in this series. Carolina is in a very, very shocking situation. I think that you'll be very surprised as to their cap situation and the type of moves that they're probably going to have to make here in the offseason. They are going to be looking for a new head coach, and they need a coach who's really going to bring this franchise up, who's going to be high energy, who's going to bring, get the fan base fired up, get the players to start, building off of what they had there at the end. And I do think that Steve Wilkes will not be back as the head coach, despite doing quite well. I think he'll get opportunities elsewhere, perhaps. But I think that this is something where they should be looking to completely change the culture of that team. They should want to install somebody who has a historical record of taking teams that have shown a little bit of promise and getting them to the next level. And I'm seeing some stuff about it being Frank Reich. Like, are they really going to choose Frank Reich? But I don't have that in mind at all for them. I, in fact, have somebody pretty epic coming in to coach the Carolina Panthers, so let's get to that. So I went with Jim Harbaugh, the current Michigan Wolverines head coach, who has one hell of a track record as a coach in both the pros and in the college game. I know that everyone is sort of like reeling in Carolina from the Matt Rule situation, but it's not the same thing. This is not the same even at all. Matt Rule had no track record in the pros. He sort of took like smaller programs, made them better, but he had no pro track record, and that really showed. Jim Harbaugh has a tremendous track record in both the pros and in college, and he's done it under really high stress situations, especially what he just did with Michigan. It took him a while to get it going. Ohio State was really a juggernaut there for a long time, but they were able to get the train on the tracks there at Michigan the last couple of years, and they performed really well. And he's got that high energy that could really revitalize the roster and the fan base and the city and the organization as a whole. And they did end the season quite well. So he could be sort of like with the San Francisco 49ers, where Singletary sort of had them looking like they were on the right track, but he just couldn't get them over the hump. Harbaugh came in and immediately got them over it. Had them in 3 consecutive NFC Championship games. We'll get to his pro numbers right here. He was 44-19-1 as the head coach of the 49ers. They won 2 NFC West titles. They won 1 NFC Championship, got to the Super Bowl, and lost to Baltimore, of course. But they were in 3 consecutive NFC Championship games before they went 8-8 in his 4th year there, and he did not return. He was so great. I hated him because of his personality, but if he was the coach of my team, I would love him. He's just one of those guys, and he gets the best out of all of his players. He saw what he did with Vernon Davis. He saw what he did with Colin Kaepernick. Like, the second Harbaugh left, Kaepernick was never the same. He was not good at all once he lost Jim Harbaugh. So he knows how to take traitsy quarterbacks and make them great. And who's a better example of that coming up in the draft than what we get from guys like C.J. Stroud, Will Levis. Could this be something that tempts Lamar Jackson? I'm not sure that that's the case. His college numbers, 132 and 52, 4 conference titles. For Stanford, he had them at 4th, and then he left, of course, to come to the 49ers. Then when he went to Michigan, he had 12th, 10th, 14th, 18th, and then the last 2 years they were ranked 3rd in the nation. So he has the resume necessary, both college and the pros. Talked about Lamar Jackson there, and it may not be in the cards, and you're about to see why. Their starting cap in this next offseason is a measly $1 million. I am not exaggerating. According to overthecap.com, which is pretty accurate, they have $1 million in cap space this year to make all their moves. So they're going to have to be getting rid of guys that are under contract to even be able to field a team to sign their rookies. So I think Panther fans need to come to terms with you're probably going to be losing some of your, quote, better, older players in order to accommodate this upcoming season. And that's another reason why I think Harbaugh's a great choice, is because he's coming in taking on this, this level of adversity, and nobody has thrived under adversity and has the ego possible to get over the adversity quite like Harbaugh. But in order to accommodate this, you kind of have to not be able to re-sign anybody, and you have to make smart cuts and get big money out of it. And that's where you get Laviska Shenault. He's going to get cut. He's just not, you can upgrade his position there. Pat Elflein, a $4.7 million cap hit. I'd get him out of there. Then you got $3 million on Marquise Hayes. You're already kind of loaded at the edge position, even though you're still looking for a starter. In terms of a depth, you're pretty much good there. Free up the $3 million. $3.6 million on Damian Wilson. And then you have to cut Shaq Thompson. He's in the last year of his deal, so there's no real room for restructuring. At best, you could extend him and then perhaps free up, $8-9 million in cap space in doing that. But then you've sort of just kicked that can down the road for him. I think that sort of cutting bait with him and restarting is in their best interest. Because $13 million that's just it. When you're in this type of situation they're in, it's sort of too good to pass up. And I would rather spend that money on the offensive line and then maybe draft a linebacker or two in the draft, of course, and build that position there. Get guys who maybe are situationally good to have a good rotation in there, have like short yardage guys, have pass coverage guys, rather than spending an exorbitant amount of money on a guy who, he was great at one point, but he's a lot older now. So it might be just in your best interest as a rebuilding team to sort of cut that off. But those moves do net you an extra $26.2 million in cap space, bringing it up to $27.2 million. So now you can actually do something. You can get somebody to maybe complete the offensive line, to, add to your, through the draft. You can probably trade up now and afford some more expensive draft picks. But we get to the team needs overall. Quarterback is obviously one. I put running back. It's not an immediate need, but I would certainly look into somebody who you can pair up with Chuba Hubbard. Maybe a nice compliment for Chuba would be a good idea. Wide receiver, I think a true wide receiver too could be in the cards for them as well. Maybe a guy that's more of a slot guy to just take some of the pressure off of DJ Moore. I know Terrace Marshall sort of had a little bit of a breakout moments. Maybe Harbaugh can get the most out of him there. They definitely need some interior offensive linemen with Icky and Taylor Moton as your two bookend tackles. I think that's really solid. It's what you do with the interior now. You got Brady Christensen in there. You got, it's just not the most ideal situation. You should be looking to upgrade that as well. You need a complementary edge rusher, a more traditional pass rushing edge for Brian Burns. It just hasn't been what you expected it to be with Yetur Gross-Matos. And then, of course, linebacker, you cut Shaq Thompson in this scenario, Damian Wilson. So you got to get something going on in there. You can drop down Jeremy Chin situationally as well. But, depending on what type of defensive coordinator you bring in, it will depend on what type of linebacker body types and traits that you might need. So that'll be sort of determined, I think, based upon who they bring in that sense. And the only free agency target that I could think of was Garrett Bradbury. Give him a $10 million cap hit. I think that makes him like the 10th highest paid center in the NFL, which I don't think is that bad. He's got all the experience in the world. He is sort of in that range, I think, in terms of where he is as a center in the league. I think he can exceed that for sure. But he's somebody to bring in who who's going to be a solid player at one of the more important positions. You're going to get a rookie quarterback in there so Bradbury can assist him with making some of the line adjustment calls and picking up blitzes. He can be somebody who can help out with that and help the development of that quarterback, whoever it may be, in that aspect of it. That's a very important aspect of being successful on offense, is being able to pick up the blitz packages, being able to adjust the blocking scheme, slide the pocket over, and just this level of experience with this type of quality, I think, is a good mix for them. It is an expensive cap hit, certainly, but it allows you to drastically improve the offensive line, and I would prioritize that over really anything else, considering you're going to be having a rookie quarterback coming in. I'd rather have the offense more ready to go in that scenario, commit to making that as good as possible, and then focusing on the defense after that. Because your quarterback can develop, and then you sort of can help the defense out to then keep games closer, give the quarterback some more opportunities to win games as you sort of go along. But I would, again, prioritizing the offense here. And for all you quick mathematicians out there, that leaves $17.2 million to fill out the rest of the roster in the draft. I would really probably focus on the offense personally in the draft, and then get some like veteran players to fill out the defense, because you got a pretty good secondary. You know, your front four is not the worst. You can afford to fill that out a little bit more as well. But I'd prioritize the offense. It's an offensive league at the end of the day. And with that money, the draft strategy, I would say be aggressive. They're in a weird position where they might not be in a position, if they don't move up, to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks. So I think they have to get on the phone with a couple of teams and be aggressive. Go get your quarterback. They could do some like cap magic and maybe free it up to get Lamar Jackson, but then you're kind of stuck, because you might have to trade to get Lamar Jackson, because Baltimore, I think, is going to franchise tag him at the very least, and then tag and trade him type of a deal, rather than just let him walk into free agency. So you got to be prepared to give him a Deshaun Watson level contract. The only way you can do that is you free up a lot of cap room. So it might not be in the cards for a team like Carolina, but you could package together some picks. You did get a decent haul for Christian McCaffrey. You can package some of those up and send them over to a team, I don't want to say like Chicago, but maybe Seattle, to get to number 5, and then you get Will Levis or CJ Stroud, whoever is available there. I think either one would be just fine. I think Harbaugh would be just fine with either one of them. And then you can use some day 2 picks to get some weapons for him. Get a receiver, maybe get another offensive lineman on the interior. You could dedicate one of those day 2 picks to getting one of the edge rushers. It's a really good edge class, so maybe you do that. I wouldn't be completely against it. And then focusing on getting maybe that late day 2, early day 3 weapons to sort of fill it out. It would sort of make it a little harsher in terms of immediate impact, but maybe you can find some diamonds in the rough. And Harbaugh's been notoriously great at that when he was in San Francisco. So I think there's a lot of potential here for Carolina. I think you just got to get the right coach in place to be able to deal with the adversity that they're going to be facing throughout this offseason. And you need to get also a coach in there that's going to maybe motivate some guys to come in for some cheaper prices. Get guys that take some pay cuts, or not necessarily pay cuts, but maybe make a couple $1 million less per year on that base salary in order to be there, because they'll want to be there. They'll feel motivated to be there by the new coach, and then of course the new quarterback, whoever that may be. But overall, you can bring optimism to what on its face looks like a pretty less than optimistic situation for the Panthers. And there it is, Panther fans. What do you think of my plan for your team? I think it's pretty good. I think I did a hell of a job. You guys are, again, in a sticky situation that I just didn't foresee coming. You would think a team that was in their scenario would have a lot more room for movement. But we'll see. We'll see how this all turns out. But as it turns out for you and I, like you and me, you should hit the thumbs up and the subscribe and then return for all the other videos I'm doing, because I'm going to try to do all 32 teams before the official start of the offseason, like as in the day after the Super Bowl. So I got a lot of work ahead of me. So please come back, help me out, support the channel. I'll see you next time.